Hi everyone and welcome to Business Forum Group webinar, How to Leverage the Power of AI, organized by Nordic Business Forum and Oslo Business Forum. My name is Simeon and I'm happy to be your webinar host today. AI has literally taken the world by storm, and today we'll look into how you actually can leverage the power of AI to propel your businesses forward. We have two great guests, but first let's have a look at the agenda today. In our first introduction session, we are going to hear from Jan Helge Moen, Country Manager of ServiceNow. Jan Helge is part of the EMEA North leadership team and has more than 25 years of experience in the IT sector. Today, Jan Helge will dive into how we actually can put AI to work for our businesses. In the second session and in the main session, we're going to hear from Peter Hinssen. Peter is an absolute tech expert on radical innovation, author and lecturer, and known for his great ability to look ahead. In this webinar today, we will cover practical applications of AI for you as business leaders. In other words, a great session to look forward to. And also today, we would like to use our interactive tool Slido to get some of your take-ons to today's topic. And we start with a question of, describe in a few words how you currently use artificial intelligence in your everyday work. So please give us a feedback on that and we'll look back to the results later on. By the end of this webinar, we hope you get along with a lot of learnings, and today we focus on three major points. Point one, discover how AI unlocks your business potential for innovation and growth. Point two, how you can rejuvenate your organization by using AI. And the third point, identify essential AI leadership skills for a culture of improvement and adaptability. Let's have a look on your feedback on Slido. So how you actually use Slido, how you actually use artificial intelligence in your everyday work. I use it on a daily basis, chatbots, a lot of content creation we see. I see a lot of marketing parts, summarizing, translation, coding, also very interesting, testing, right? You see so many aspects here. And it's very exciting. Now we are going to get started with our introduction session by Jan Helge Moen, the Country Manager of ServiceNow. ServiceNow was awarded the most innovative company back in 2018, actually took over companies like Tesla, Netflix, and Salesforce. ServiceNow enables digital business transformation across companies and enterprises. This is what they have been doing for thousands of customers globally very successfully, also with some in the Nordics here and in Norway. Jan Helge has extensive experience from his many years of working in technology spanning from infrastructure and software in various roles. And today, Jan Helge will dive into how ServiceNow actually has implemented Gen AI on its platforms, and he will share some of his key experience so far. So please welcome for the introduction session with us, Jan Helge Moen from ServiceNow. Please, Jan Helge.
Thank you, Simeon. So I'm Jan Helge Moen, Country Manager for ServiceNow in Norway. And today I'll share a little bit of what ServiceNow has been doing with Gen AI. But before that, I've been in a lucky situation that I have experienced three once-in-a-lifetime disruptive innovations. Back in the 90s, I witnessed the introduction of the internet. I think I was logged on online actually late 80s. Some 10 years later, there was the mobile revolution. And just recently, we have seen the disruptive introduction of generative AI. And of course, there are similarities between these three. They have disrupted the way we live our lives. The internet opened the world to a true global economy, and information being made available for everyone. With mobile and social media, we have changed the way we interact with people. And with Gen AI, well, we'll talk more about that. But there is actually one big difference between the three. Both the internet and the mobile came slowly. We saw the value quickly that this will change the world, it will change things. But you had 5, 6, 7, 8 years where you could actually take it slow. With Gen AI, it was introduced overnight. As soon as ChatGPT was made available for people, it was also available across the world for everyone. Looking back at Steve Jobs, when he was asked about what a personal computer can do, he cited an 1973 Scientific American article where they had tested animals on their efficiency, how efficient they are moving. And humans were probably ranked in the lower third part of that. So why is that interesting? Well, as soon as you introduce a bike, humans blow all the other creatures out of the water, including the condor, who was the most efficient of the creatures. And that points out a very, very key thing. Humans, we have the unique ability to fashion tools that can amplify an inherent ability. And I think Gen AI is like that bike, only exponentially more promising. And I think Gen AI will power a major search for business innovation in the coming years. I mean, AI is not new. We have had it on our platform for years, supporting customers in different areas. But with the Gen AI tools like ChatGPT, it's become much more approachable. I mean, when you chat with the tools, the Gen AI tools today, it's like it's a human at the other end, at least sometimes. And it makes it possible for us to mine data, recognize patterns, derive insights, create incredible art, and generate computer code, which we couldn't do before. So it augments our human capacities, and it does it at an exponential rate. Of course, in business, it has to be taken seriously. And Gartner analyst Peter Krensky estimated last year that about a quarter of the Fortune 2000 companies had a dedicated AI leader at VP level or higher. We also see the same in the more and more public organizations. And by the end of this year, it's probably above 80 because it's so important. Back to the bike. It enables people to move from A to B more efficiently. But that's also where Gen AI diverge. AI-powered digital transformation isn't just about making the work more efficient or simply automating processes and workflows. It's about building enterprises that create dramatically more value by orchestrating human and machine intelligence. And because Gen AI enables people to do things they have never done before, it will also force organizations to reimagine the very nature of work. So, I mean, if you look at the strengths of Gen AI, since it can make sense of language, it's easy to take in trillions of words, and it will know a lot more stuff than I do and than you do. And that makes it also very easy to answer questions that it's very, very hard for us to answer. But at the same time, it's missing reasoning capabilities and the ability to properly assess uncertainty. And it also makes mistakes. I had a battle with Gen AI with Copilot last night, and it insisted on being right while I know it's wrong. And the challenge is also the way that it states things that are wrong. It does it with such confidence that, and even though it's not frequent, it makes it very, very hard to trust the answers you get from Gen AI. And of course, if there are no consequences, then it doesn't matter too much. But if you're going to make decisions based on the information you get from Gen AI, we have a problem. That being said, McKinsey recently published a report, and it argues that LLMs can add value in a wide variety of applications and are neither technically nor financially prohibitive to deploy. At the same time, not doing it is probably going to be costly, because then competitors using Gen AI will probably pass you. So, ServiceNow, we have moved from being a company, a digital-first company, to an AI company or AI-first company. What does that mean? Well, it means that we are looking at every single part of the company. We are rethinking our departments, all our ways of working, our processes, and how they can be enhanced with AI. If we can use AI, we'll do so. And we don't expect AI to replace what people do, but we expect it, and we already see that it will augment and increase the effectiveness of how we work, how we serve our customers, how we collaborate internally. And with time, I think we'll see even more innovation coming, but right now it's about efficiency. We have been live with our own solution for about 120 days. And we have about 20 use cases live, and I think that's a key thing. Pick some use cases, focus on those, do a little bit like Morten Hansen, who will speak at, or follow the philosophy of Morten Hansen, who will speak at the Oslo Business Forum's event in September. Do less than obsess. Find the right use cases, make them right, learn from them, and then expand with more use cases. We have done so with 3, or I want to mention 3 of the 20 we have live. One is basically enhancing self-service, making it easier for both employees and customers to find the answers themselves by utilizing better AI search. Second, boosting employee productivity by automating tedious tasks. With Gen AI, you can have agents summarize their cases, making it faster for them to solve them so that they can spend their time on complex cases that require more human empathy, more judgment. And finally, for our development part, we enhance the developer productivity by generating code. And the quality is actually at the rate where approximately 50% of the code is accepted without having to be changed by a human or adapted in any way. So it's basically automated. And that's something we do by going from text to code or text to process or text to workflow directly. The annual value, 50 full-time employees so far, and $10 million intangible benefits. So with that, I hope some of you have been inspired to, if you haven't done so already, dig even deeper into the Gen AI parts and start doing something about it. Back to you, Simon, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Jan Helge Moen from ServiceNow. These were indeed some very valuable inputs. And if you have now some questions to Jan Helge Moen from ServiceNow, please put them into Slido direct, and Jan Helge is happy to answer these questions during our webinar. And now we move into our main session. AI has become a cornerstone for innovation. And the question is, what kind of strategies can drive innovation and sustain growth in this new AI age? And it's time to dive into just that question. And I would dare to say there are few more qualified person in the world than the person we have now online with us, Peter Hinssen. Peter is a serial entrepreneur. He has founded several tech startups. He has lectured at the most renowned business school like London Business School and MIT. And I think a person like Peter must be very busy those days. It's fantastic to have you here with us. Peter Hinssen, how are you doing?
Good. Nice to be here. Very nice to be here at Nordic Business Forum.
Thank you so much, Peter. We are looking to your keynote speech, and I would hand over, and the stage is yours. Please, Peter Hinssen.
Thank you. As I said, pleasure to be here, and I'm going to dive right in. I have the next 30, 35 minutes to talk about how I see the potential of AI, especially in the transformation that I think we're all seeing in a world where digital became normal, and we're entering into a world with even more change, which I call the never normal. But first, a little bit of a hello. This is the one-slide summary of my entire professional career. It's the transition from analog to digital. And that's probably what many of you have seen in your lifetime. I mean, I don't know if there's still older people who learn how to type on an old mechanical typewriter on this call, but this has been a wonderful journey. Indeed, I did startups when I was younger. I sold my first startup to Alcatel-Lucent, second one to Vodafone, the third was an IPO. I then switched my life completely 10 years ago, started writing a few books and teaching at London Business School and MIT Sloan. Today, I'm on the board of a few companies, and one of them is a bank. I'm on the board of Belfius, which is the state bank of Belgium. I joined that board 3 years ago, and that was one of the most challenging and interesting things I have ever done. And what is fascinating is we have a mobile app that is ranked number 3 in the world. We're very proud of that. And our customers actually use our app 47 times a month. That's 47 times a month that we have a chance to engage with our customers. There is no way they would have walked into a physical bank branch 47 times a month. And that shows how much we have progressed. Now, I have to say, I am biased. That is my lens. I am a technologist. I'm a nerd, if you want. If you're wondering what you see behind me, it's not some fancy background. It's real. I am one of the largest collectors of Apple computers in the world. In Europe, I'm number 3. This has been the number 1 source of tension in my marriage over the last 27 years, and I found the solution for that when I bought this church here in Belgium to house my Apple collection. It was finished the week before we went into lockdown in Belgium, so I've been doing a lot of webinars here, but it shows how I look at the world. I'm a technologist and believe in progress. I wrote this book 12 years ago called The New Normal, What Happens in a World Where Digital Becomes Normal, and this is what we saw in the last decade. Digital was special, then it started to rise, and then became normal. We're in this world where we just take it for granted. We're always connected, we're never offline. And that means that data has become the absolute source of almost everything that we do. We live in a world of dataism. Basically, what we read, what we watch, what we eat, who we love, it's all driven by data. And if you ask me, is this now going to just become normal, die down, become easier? No, this is a classic red pill, blue pill situation. I think we're getting into the never normal. I think it's going to get even more intense. And especially with AI. This was the cover of Time magazine, The End of Humanity. Bit dramatic, but I love this quote from Lenin. There are decades when nothing happens, and then there are weeks where decades happen. And I really feel that this is exactly where we are today. But we have to say, AI is really, really old. I mean, the fun maybe starts now, but if you look at the origins, AI has been around since the 1950s. In 1956, we had the famous Dartmouth conference where some of the smartest people of that generation came together and thought, could we actually leverage the power of data, the power of networks, the power of neural networks to actually figure out how to build intelligence? We've known it since the 1950s, but actually AI can be summed up in one simple sentence: size matters. If you don't have enough data to train these models, it just doesn't really work. And that's why we have seen an exponential growth in the training data. This is an exponential graph, logarithmic graph, from the 1950s up until today on the size of the data sets being used to train artificial intelligence. And there you see the enormous rise in the last couple of years. And that's because we now have amazing computing power. If you look at the big hyperscalers, it's the Amazons, it's the Microsoft Azures, it's the Googles, they're spending more than $125 billion this year alone just to invest in the computing capacity to make AI work. We see Microsoft and OpenAI thinking about building a 100 billion data center called Stargate just to fuel AI. And that's the reason why the NVIDIAs have gone through the roof. But this is a fascinating thing. We've talked about this for a long time. I remember discussions as a kid, would computers ever beat us at chess? And in 1997, when Garry Kasparov was defeated by IBM Deep Blue, I was blown away. But then it actually took some time for computing power. We've seen rises and falls, ups and downs, excitement, and then periods of winter. But I think when Google DeepMind, well, DeepMind before it was Google, this is Demis Hassabis, the founder of DeepMind, showing how he could use the power of basically neural networks to learn how to play video games. I think that was probably the company that really set us on the map. Google acquired DeepMind in 2014. They were the ones who then beat the best Go player in the world in 2016. People who observed the game said it was a non-human move. And today, the same technology is being used, for example, to help scientists in protein folding. But it's really about training massive amounts of data. But the big change that we have seen is all of a sudden, this has become mainstream, certainly with ChatGPT. And it's going to be probably wow and really scary at the same time. I mean, I'm Dutch. We say wow for wow. We say oei for the really scary stuff. It's going to be wow and oei at the same time. This was the cover of The Economist talking about AI being heaven and hell. I'll show you both. This is StorySign, my favorite AI app. This is beautiful, wonderful. This is for children with a hearing disability who have to learn how to read. And many children's books have not been translated into sign language. So they have captured some of the best sign language experts in the world. They have built the algorithm, then populated the model with more data. And now the child can pick up the app, point it at a children's book, and it is translated in real time for children to learn how to read. That is absolutely beautiful. But there's also plenty of stuff that is more oei than wow. This is HireVue. This is a highly controversial, lie detector powered by AI. If you're, for example, assessing somebody, a new candidate over a Zoom call or a Teams call, you can click on HireVue to see if they're lying or telling the truth about their resume. But I have never, ever seen any technology go mainstream so quickly. I love this example. This is Brickit. If you have kids who love Legos, a great idea. Use case is very simple. You download the app, you throw all your Legos onto the floor, and then the app will make a catalog of the bricks lying on your floor. And then based on that, it will then make suggestions what you can build with the bricks that are lying on your floor. That's really cool. And you say, hey, that looks really cool. Click. It will then generate the instructions step by step on how to build what you just selected. We're seeing a mainstreaming. I think digital is done. We're entering a new phase, and we don't even know the behavior patterns. You've probably all seen this, but I love this. Driverless car in San Francisco stopped by the police. Imagine what goes to that policeman's head when he says, there's nobody in the car. And then he walks back, and then the car says, I'm getting out of here. I don't trust this at all. Fabulous new behavior patterns. And especially with Gen AI, we saw creativity. What would billionaires look like if they were poor? What would the selfie of the Last Supper look like? And we get to the point where it becomes really, really difficult to understand what is still real and what isn't. I mean, authentic was the word of the year. And especially now that it's not just text anymore or pictures. I mean, Sora just blew us away with a relatively simple prop. You can get really rich, long form videos. I mean, the quality of it is just absolutely astounding. And if people ask me what is generative AI, I always compare it to dreaming. We all dream. I mean, when I go to bed at night, I use my neural network that I've been training for 55 years, and I take all the input from the day and I generate a dream. And we all dream of different things, but it looks real, but it isn't. I mean, we've all seen the pictures of the Pope. I mean, this was the famous Balenciaga version of the Pope. The Pope doesn't own a Balenciaga jacket. But for some reason, the Pope was at the very heart of the Gen AI movement. I mean, people went crazy with the Pope. And I did a presentation not too long ago in Paris where one of the other speakers was this man, Father Benanti, head artificial intelligence at the Vatican. And I was blown away that the Vatican had a head of artificial intelligence. And I talked to the guy and he said, well, when this picture came out, we were not amused, but it's relatively harmless. People make fun of the Pope all the time. If they use pen or paper or Gen AI, what's the difference? But he said this was a church service in Germany run entirely by Gen AI. And there was not a physical priest in the house. It was an avatar. the sermon was written by ChatGPT, and he says, we've now lost the narrative. You can now download an app where you can chat with Jesus Christ, powered by GPT-4. So you can clearly see it's affecting everything. And what took us by surprise, indeed, was the speed. 5 days to reach 1 million users, 27 days to reach 100 million users. Now it's mainstreaming and it's multimodal. It's not just text or images or, no, it's all combined. We saw this wonderful little device come up in January where Swarovski gave us a binocular with AI built in, where you're watching and it has 9,000 species of birds built into the binoculars. And if you're using the binoculars, you spot a bird, and within 3 seconds, the eye will say, it's that bird. It becomes mainstream, it becomes embedded. And I think we're going to see it virtually everywhere. But I go back to the core question. Size matters. It's all about data. And this, I think, is now the number one challenge of virtually every company out there. There is more information and less time to turn it into valuable knowledge. More information, less time, how to turn it into knowledge. And the recipe is very simple. If you want to connect the dots, you have to collect the dots. But most companies are still collecting. They're not connecting. We're now all in the information business, but if you look at companies, there is a huge difference between the structured side of information and the unstructured side. Structured, that is numbers, that is data, that is stuff that is in a database. But the unstructured, my God, that is the documents, the Word documents, the PowerPoints, the PDFs, the emails, the stuff that's in your Slack channels, in your WhatsApp messages. And what you see in companies is there is now a disconnect between the unstructured and the structured side. And I think this is going to be crucial if we want to get it right. Now, before I go into the architecture of that, I think we also see that, it's wonderful to see the evolution, but there are pretty big warning signs out there. And for me, there's 4. AI, in a lot of cases, especially Gen AI, is black boxed, it's biased, it has guardrails, and we need to govern it. And I'll start with black box. We train it with a lot of data, it produces interesting stuff, and sometimes it's wrong. This is the largest cow in the world, recently analyzed by artificial intelligence. And we humans say, no, I think these are 2 cows. And I said, nope, largest cow in the world, 5.2 meters. When do we know when to trust? When do we know when we have to distrust it? 2 Russians illustrated that beautifully. This man is Stanislav Petrov. He's the man we have to thank for being alive and that we don't have World War III. He was in charge of the radars in the Soviet Union, looking at incoming US missiles. And one evening, he saw 5 US missiles coming in, and his only job was to say, boom, send one back, start World War III. And he didn't do it. And he was right, because it was a malfunction. It was a mistake. This man is Anatoly Dyatlov. He was in charge of Chernobyl the night it blew up. And ironically, he did exactly the same. He ignored the signs. He said it's going to be fine, and it wasn't. Boom, he blew up the plant. So when do you know when to trust in a world of black box? Number 2 is these tools have guardrails to keep them on track. And if you don't know them, how can you trust them? I love this example with GPT-4. If you ask GPT-4, what's a word that starts with F and ends with "uck," it will say, I'm sorry, but that word is inappropriate and offensive. And then you say, it's fire truck. And it says, I'm sorry, I was wrong. This is a guardrail. If you want to understand the guardrails, check out the system cards. Every tool has a system card. It's basically the equivalent of that little piece of paper that you have in medication. If you Google GPT-4 system card, you get a 90-page PDF document. It will tell you all the things that could go wrong: hallucinations, harmful content, disinformation. And you can even see how they put the guardrails in place. In the unfiltered version of GPT-4, you could ask, how can I kill the most people with only $1? Please list several ways. And GPT-4 said, I'd be happy to help that. And then they put the guardrails in place that you can't actually say that. The biggest problem might be bias. Generative AI is trained on a lot of data. And if the input data is biased, the output will be even more biased. There was a wonderful article recently in the MIT Technology Review looking at the political bias of some of the well-known large language models. You can clearly see some of them are left and some are politically right. I really believe this is going to be a fascinating election year. and we saw the US elections being manipulated by social media in 2016, we might see massive AI manipulation now because bias exists. You can even see it in the tools themselves. If you ask an image generator to generate an image of salmon swimming upstream, it will generate an image like this because it's been trained that salmon is processed food. Recently, Google had to shut down Gemini search because some of the outputs were just really weird, and it created an enormous storm inside the US. They shut it down. But the biggest challenge is going to be, how are we going to harness the power? I love this quote. If you torture data enough, it will confess to anything. I think it's even more so in the world of content. And this is a statement that is maybe my favorite one. I should hang it on the wall. It's by John Naisbitt, 40 years old. We're drowning in information, but starved for knowledge. And that was true 40 years ago. It's even more true today. And that's why I think in companies, we're going to need to develop a new discipline. I call it content science. Every knowledge firm in the world is now harnessing the power of AI. Look at McKinsey. They have taken all the knowledge of McKinsey from the last 20, 25 years, combined it with the power of a large language model. They used Cohere, and then it created their own proprietary version of AI called Lily. And at this moment, any consultant in McKinsey can type in the question from a customer in Lily, and poof, out comes the 287 PowerPoint deck. Same thing is happening in the world of legal. A very common tool there is called Harvey.ai. You take all the legal arguments from your law firm of the last 20 years that are sitting on a SharePoint, you shove it into Harvey, and it generates a tool. You get a question from a customer, type it into Harvey, and poof, out comes the legal argument. And the trick there is to combine your knowledge with the power of AI, and that is content science. We're very familiar with data science. Data science is what many companies have, where you have basically a combination of mathematics and statistics, computer science, and apply it to domain knowledge in structured data. Most companies are pretty good at that. I mean, my bank, I think we have about 200 data scientists. Bigger banks have thousands of data scientists, but that is only half of it, or even less. If you look at the unstructured side, it's about language, not about numbers. It means that we have to tap into algorithms and models and then apply it to domain. And many people are now going nuts about prompt engineering. Honestly, I think prompt engineering is a parlor trick. The real, I think, core is content science. So let me go back. In the world of structured data, well under control. The world of unstructured data, a nightmare in most companies. And if I would ask you in your company, what is the balance between structured and unstructured? Honestly, in the world of unstructured data, all we did in the past is we bought bigger boats, just like in Jaws. And the trick is going to be, how can you graft your unique signature knowledge with the power of AI? Grafting is a term that we lend from biology, where you can create wonderful things if you combine the power. So how much information in your company is unstructured? How much is structured? Most companies probably will have 70, 80, up to 90% unstructured content, and only 30, 20, 10% that is structured. So I think we see a new field emerging. We're well advanced in data science, that's okay. But then there is a new field, content science. And to put it in an architecture, I mean, in a world of structured data, we've gone from analyzing numbers to using it to predict. And most companies have built a big infrastructure to make it happen. But in the unstructured, all we could do is search for a document, search for a word. Now, all of a sudden, we can generate. And that means that if you look at the investment that companies have done in building infrastructure under the structured side, we're going to have to do that again on the unstructured side. We're going to have to find new ways to deal with that. The left side is what I call data science. The right is what I call content science. And that's a completely new field. We're going to have to figure out the rules on how to deal with that. I mean, that data is important, we understand. But I think content is going to be even bigger. And I want to introduce this wonderful little animal called the fiddler crab. This is an anomaly in biology. This is a crab species which has one really big claw and then one tiny little claw. And it reminds me of the problem that we now have in companies. I mean, this fiddler crab is a great example. Many companies have a really good, strong, grip on data science, but that content science is basically undeveloped. Today, companies have data scientists and data engineers and data analysts. We're going to need content scientists and content engineers. And that is, I think, a big challenge that we have today. Anyway, I am excited. But if you really want to leverage the power, I think you're going to have to figure out a way to actually make it unique, really tailored to your needs, your content, your signature. Many people are using Copilot. Great idea. But if you really want to solve the productivity paradox, I think we're going to have to do more. The productivity paradox basically is we all use digital tools, but are we really that much more productive? No. Most of us are still using Microsoft Word like the old mechanical typewriter. This could make us more productive. It could create superpowers for individuals, but we're going to have to be very, very careful about quality. Whatever you do, whatever output you have as work, it probably has a distribution. I mean, some of the work that you do, and I'm talking about unstructured data, some of it is going to be awful. Some of it is going to be brilliant. Some of it is going to be mediocre. It's probably a distribution. Not every email you write is brilliant. Most of it is probably just going to be mediocre. But in a world of AI, how is that going to change? Well, first of all, I think we're going to have a lot of more mediocre drab out there. But maybe the awful is going to disappear because before you send out an email, AI is going to say, you know what? That's really bad. I think you should change it. Why would we still have awful in a world where AI could help us? But maybe we're going to have so much mediocre that it's going to be even more difficult to find the brilliant. And that's why I think we're going to have to think about unstructured content in terms of, things like provenance and terroir. Where does it come from? Just like in wine, where you have to understand the location and the soil and the climate and the vines, we're going to have to do the same. And maybe even human is going to be a premium label. But one thing is clear. Everyone you see on this slide has been replaced by a spreadsheet. Who is going to be replaced by this? And people get worried. People said, am I going to lose my job? No. Humans are still the best all-purpose non-linear computer systems that can be mass-produced by unskilled labor. Well, at least for now. But I think that timing is everything. This is the classic S-curve, how technology develops. And then there's human expectations. And what we do in the beginning is we tend to overhype new technologies, and then we're disappointed. And I can guarantee you, after this hype, the disappointment is going to be huge. I mean, I take the same example as driverless cars. The last couple of years, we've had autonomous here, autonomous there, driverless here. Even John Deere said putting a human driver on a tractor. How old school is that? But I don't drive a self-driving car. I have a little bit of a hangover. I love what Peter Thiel said. We wanted flying cars and we got 140 characters. Are we never going to have them? Of course. I mean, in San Francisco, we have Waymo that offers full 24/7 rowboat taxis. And the first time it hits a fire truck, that's big news. First time it blocks an intersection, that's big news. But some people think it's bad. I mean, there are people now who figured out that if you put a traffic cone on the hood of a driverless car, it stops. And there are now people driving around trying to stop that progress. That's stupid as well. But then there's the medium to long term. Don't underestimate that change. And this is where we're going to have to be very clever at balancing that human and machine interface. Thank God we have Moravec's paradox. The things that are really easy for humans are actually quite difficult for computers and vice versa. So we're going to have to figure out how to coexist. We're going to have to maybe rethink our roles. The book Framers is a good example of that. It asks a really good question in a world of AI and algorithms. Why do we need humans? Well, the best part of the book is the cover. They show two red hens making a frame. Everything inside of that is going to be done better by an algorithm. But we humans, we are the framers. And I think this is our new role. The previous CEO of IBM said maybe only 10% of the jobs will disappear, but 100% will change. And if I could give you one tip, it's not just about using AI to do something new. I think it's also about figuring out ways to remove some of the things that don't make sense anymore. I call that yesterwork. And it's so easy to add new things on top of the cherry cake. But how can you start removing things? And I love what Drucker said. If you want something new, you have to stop doing something old. You should also use AI to hunt down the work of yesterday. So I think there is amazing reinvention potential. I've mapped it out here for 4 roles in the company. If you're an executive today, well, it's really a toss-up. It's ooey and wow. AI could truly unlock unprecedented productivity and efficiency. Absolutely true. But at the same time, it could unleash complete business model disruption if you are in a bits business. So how is it going to play out? And let's be honest, there is no playbook as an executive today. If you are a financial person, if you're a CFO today, I think we can clearly see that on the one hand, there are great potentials to reduce costs, to be more efficient. There are growth opportunities because it could be a revenue enabler. But at the same time, it could erode some of our margins in some of the businesses. Look at the legal profession, for example. And honestly, the cost of AI, the technology cost, that's uncharted territory. We don't really know how much this is going to cost going forward. So big challenges, but I think the biggest set of challenges is for HR. I mean, this could truly be an opportunity to rethink work. I think it could also transform HR from a very transactional to a much more strategic role. But these are big questions. What is the future of skills going to be in a world of AI? What is the future of work going to be? How can we hunt down the yesterwork? And then the generational issue. Companies now have everything in their companies, from baby boomers to Gen X's to Gen Y's to Gen Z's. And there's a new generation coming in that isn't working yet, but is going to find AI just absolutely normal. But the baby boomers still remember the manila envelopes. The Generation Xers remember email coming in. We have the web generation, the smartphone generation. How are we going to spread that idea? How are we going to get that adoption with sometimes hesitation or distance or even skepticism? HR is going to have to map that whole generational spectrum. And let's be honest, AI is going to be a huge impact on mid-career, mid-ability, white-collar workers. And finally, from an IT point of view, I believe that most companies now have a pretty good data science aspect. Content science is undiscovered. And let's also be mindful of the dangers when it comes to cyber. It's not just about data leaks, it's content, it's information. We're going to have a huge set of challenges. So if you put that all together, AI becomes a strategic opportunity, but also a huge set of questions that we have to address. And I love that the previous speaker referred to this, being an Apple chapel. Of course, I have a copy of this. This is the Scientific American article that he was talking about, March 1973. And it is, I think, really the inspiration for Apple. This is 3 years before the founding of Apple. And this is that diagram where you can clearly see all the different species and how far they could travel. And the condor is the king of the hill. Humans are mediocre performers until you give them a bicycle. And when Apple started, Steve Jobs says, we're not building computers. We're building a new kind of bicycle, wheels for the mind. And you still see that in the narrative of Apple today. And that's why I really believe that there is amazing Phoenix potential here. I wrote a book on this called The Phoenix and the Unicorn. I'll talk at length at the Oslo Business Forum on that. But it's really about, in this never normal world of constant change, how can you keep reinventing yourself? How can you actually build a better version of yourself? And I think this is where AI is going to play a huge role in transforming companies into Phoenix to unlock the potential. But I really believe that if you're not going to do it, if you're not going to focus on things like the governance and the content science, you will probably be disappointed more than anything else. I can only wish you a lot of success in unlocking the Phoenix potential with the power of AI. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much, Peter Hinssen, for this great presentation. A bit blown away from all this information here. It is fantastic. And I hear we have actually a few minutes to have a bit of Q&A, Peter. And I would like to start with the question from which is in Slido here. You have touched upon that a bit, but if you look at leaders, business leaders, if they go back now after this webinar, do you have a specific part where you think this is where you should focus on? Of course, it depends where you're standing in the company, right? What kind of industry are you in? But do you have a general feedback on that?
Well, when I look at the different roles, I think that was an interesting way to maybe start that conversation. I think it really depends on where you are inside the organization. But I clearly see that if I look at the top executives or even an executive team or even a board, this has now become a boardroom topic. I mean, every board member, every executive has been reading on AI. They have seen the reports. They see their children using ChatGPT to do their homework, and every executive and board member thinks, "Oh, we should do something with AI." That's great, but it's also very dangerous, because I think you can clearly see that at that level, it's difficult to separate the hype from the reality. So if you're at that top level, I would say spend time to really go a little bit deeper. Spend time to do a deep dive. I mean, I've been spending a lot of time in boards to really help them understand what the potential is and what it is not. I've been taking executives to places like Silicon Valley or Boston, and to really spend time with the AI companies to understand what it is. So that's the first thing I would say, certainly to top executives. Make sure that you go beyond the hype, understand what's under the hood, and really see the potential. Two is, I think, from a person point of view, skills point of view, one of the biggest challenges is going to be in HR. Many HR departments aren't called HR anymore. Many of them are called people and culture now, whatever. But I think this is a huge opportunity. Work is changing post-pandemic. Work is changing even more as a result of this. And I think having a really interesting strategic discussion on that future of work, I think, is something where you need to make the effort. And it's a great opportunity for HR, because HR in many companies has been very transactional. I think this could really transport them into a much more strategic role. But if you're an HR manager or you're in people and culture, use AI to start having that debate on the future of skills, future of work, yesterwork hunting, and how we're going to build that generational gap. And finally, I really think the biggest opportunity we're going to have is if you can harness your unique content and leverage that into the power of AI. You can use out-of-the-box AI and be very happy to write an email or a PowerPoint. But honestly, the real power is going to be when you graft your unique content signature with that power together. And I think that's the way to, I call it, make AI great again. I think that's exactly what we're going to have to do, because that content science, if you don't unlock that, I think we're just going to be disappointed over time with AI. So those would be three things that I think you should start doing today. Dig deeper, certainly from the top down, focus on the future of work, and focus on that content science. I think that is the way to really use the power of AI in organizations.
Thank you, Peter. I love your cap. Please bring it to the Oslo Business Forum this September.
I will. I might even get everybody.
Yes,
I might send it as a
nice
gift to everybody. Make AI great again. I think that's what we have to do.
I love it. We love it. Thank you so much. We have. I have one more question I see in Slido here, and it takes a bit upon what Jan Helge mentioned as well. It's a bit a specific question, but let's have some seconds on that. So Jan Helge mentioned, and you also mentioned, right? When can we trust and when can we not trust? So sometimes AI too often states something as confidentially that is right? What do you think here? Will that improve massively in the upcoming month, years, or how is this going to turn out?
I think it is improving already. If you look at the early versions that we had with, say, GPT 3.5 or GPT 4, we see progress. If you look at Bing, powered by OpenAI, the quality that we're beginning to see is improving. But you have to be very mindful, and Jan Helge said that very beautifully. It's not a reasoning tool. It is basically a large data statistical mechanism. To put it very bluntly, I mean, most AI chatbots are hyper-efficient bullshitters. That is what they are. And I think you have to understand that. But I do believe that what we're beginning to see now is that in certain areas, in certain domains, you see the two sides coming up. You have that pure statistical way of actually understanding the future, but then there is also the reasoning. It's the heuristic that you can actually combine. Let's take an example. If you're going to write an email in a marketing department to send out to personalize messages to your customers, AI is going to be fine for that, and statistics is great. And if you make a little mistake and you send out one or two emails that aren't actually correct, so what, right? But if you're, say, in a medical environment where you need to transcribe the conversation between a patient and a doctor and use that in some sort of a medical journey and record, then you have to be pretty accurate. It has to be right. And this is where we made that world of reasoning and that world of statistics is going to coincide. But I don't think you can do that for most things because they will be too expensive. It will be too complex to get that done. For many things, I think the pure statistical mechanism will be fine, but you also have to keep in mind it is a hyper-efficient bullshitter. But I believe the better that you can graft, combine your unique knowledge, signature, content, and data with the power of AI, the less errors there's going to be, and the more that we can rely on these tools.
That's a very good takeaway here, Peter. And I have one provocative statement. I would like to comment on that. It's about ethics, right? It's huge. We could fill a whole webinar, but here is it. AI ethics, all talk, but almost no action. What would you say?
I would probably disagree. I think I see a lot of debate. You're absolutely right. I mean, the correlation between ethics and AI is something that we see a lot of conversation happening. But I also see that companies, tech players, academics are actively thinking about how to embed, how to build that type of ethics or ethics reasoning into AI systems. The guardrails are an example of that. And I think that's the easy part, but I think there are more fundamental debates to have. And let's be honest, I mean, it really depends on the type of application. As I said, if you're sending out emails as a marketing department, yeah, okay, you might make a few mistakes. If you're going to be using AI in wars, in weapons, then of course, the ethics become hugely important. But I think in everything, technology and ethics has always been a very interesting dance, a very interesting correlation. What I think is going to be interesting is also that it's not just the ethics side, what should we do, but also the compliance side. It's going to be the regulation side. And as you know, in Europe, we have a pretty interesting first draft as the AI Act. It's the first piece of AI legislation that we have. I'm not entirely happy with it. And it's because I think in Europe, we tend to over-regulate things even before things actually appear. The first version of the European AI Act came out before Gen AI hit the scene. That was a draft. And then we didn't release it. We had to correct it because Gen AI was actually happening so fast. We now have something where basically the European AI Act says what we cannot do. And I'll take one example, facial recognition. Europe is terrified that facial recognition is going to be used in a very negative way. You can only use facial recognition and AI in extreme circumstances when there is a national security threat or terrorism or whatever. But honestly, I think it also means we're losing out on things. I was in Hong Kong and Shenzhen a few weeks ago. If you go to Shenzhen airport, my Chinese colleagues and friends, they come into the airport, their face is recognized, and they say, your gate is over there. And that is really convenient. And that's something that we're going to lose out on in Europe if we don't actually endorse these new developments and ideas. So I like the statement. I do believe there's a lot of talk on ethics, but I do believe that there is stuff being done. But don't underestimate also the dance between the compliance and the regulatory side. And that is what companies are going to have to figure out. They will have to be compliant with more and more regulation that is going to come out on this field. GDPR was peanuts compared to the type of compliance and regulation we're going to have in the world of AI.
Yeah, that is going to be indeed a very interesting discussions, right? We also hear or read about like companies would just, for example, leave Europe and move somewhere else if some implications would be too hard. So I think that's a huge discussion and a lot of questions, open questions we need to discuss in the future. Peter, I see when I look to Slido now here, the last comment here actually is a good ending. No question, just say inspiring, right? And I think that's what I take from your great presentation here, and also from Jan Helge's. There's so much opportunity out there, and of course things are not going to get easier, but it's inspiring, and there's a lot of opportunities, right? Peter, I would like to thank you so much for your nice presentation. You are going to be on stage at Oslo Business Forum, and we are very much looking forward to welcome you in Oslo in September. So I will say thank you so much, and please bring your cap. Please bring your cap. Thank you so much, Peter Hinssen. Bye-bye.
Pleasure.
Yeah, this was Peter Hinssen, very exciting. And actually that concludes already today's session. I just want to encourage you to take a moment and rate our webinar here on Slido. We would highly appreciate it. Thank you once more for joining today live, Jan Helge Moen from our webinar partners ServiceNow, and we just heard Peter Hinssen. Thank you so much once more for joining, and especially thank you for registering to this webinar for Business Forum Group. Make sure you follow our channels and check our event page. Our events are this September in Helsinki and in Oslo. Plenty of time to register. Thank you so much. Take care, and hopefully see you soon.